Good morning. Good morning, students, colleagues, alumni, friends, and Setonians throughout the world. My name is Matthew Borowick, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our annual State of the University Address. Today is a time to look back with gratitude and appreciation, and a chance to look forward with determination and faith. Let us use this time to reflect on the many accomplishments of our great university and dream of all that is yet to come. You know, next Friday marks the 43rd anniversary of the canonization of Elizabeth Ann Seton, our university's namesake. With that in mind, we begin by invoking the intercession of our saints and the blessings of our Lord. I invite Monsignor Anthony Zaccardi, Vice President for Mission and Ministry, to deliver our opening prayer. Following the prayer, Dr. Mary Meehan will deliver our Presidential State of the University Address. Monsignor Zaccardi.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we praise you for times and seasons, for seasons of rest and vacation, and for times of work and study. You hold all times in your hands, and you provide for us and guide us through every season. We thank you for the successes you gave us last year and the successes you are preparing for us this year. Grant us never to slacken in our efforts, intellectual and practical, to do our best, and help us never to forget you and your sustaining and providential power. With you and through you, may we grow together as a true community and as a welcoming and nurturing family for one another and for all who would join us. May our spirit, our words, and our deeds attract many more to join us in our mission and give glory to you, who live and reign with your Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Monsignor, and a warm, warm welcome to each and every one of you, and also to those of you who will be watching this remotely. We wish you were with us in this room, but we thank you for being part of our community. It is truly, a privilege to share with you some of the great news of what was accomplished by each and every one of you last year. It was a great year, despite many challenges. And so I'm going to go through that. But before I start, I would also just like to remind us that, we are striving so hard to move forward that sometimes we don't take that pause to look back and say, we've done a lot. And we should be very proud of what we've done. And as I remind our board, and the cabinet sitting up here with me can attest, I'm constantly reminding them, we don't have enough money to do what we're doing, and we overperform given our resources. And I think that's an important thing for you to remember, because it puts in a context of you all accomplished so much for this university on what I would call a shoestring, and I am so very, very proud to be part of this community. When I first became a college president some years back now, we all go to Harvard and to learn how in 1 week to be a university president. Can you imagine? But one of the many things that I did take away from it was we were reminded that the office of president, it's not a privileged job, but it is a privilege to serve in that role. So whether you're there, as I was in the last place for 12 years, or here where we're all hoping I'll be gone in June, it's still a privilege and an honor to be with all of you. We teach our students to be lifelong learners. I was recently in a diner and read this very disturbing little fact, so I'm hoping it's just some trivial fact, that 42% of college graduates after college admit they've never read a book 10 years later. 42%. I said, I hope this was some crazy survey done, I don't know where, but it disturbed me, but it reminded me again that we are here, each and every one of us, to be a lifelong learner. And so I thank you for what you've taught me this past year. So let's get started. Enrollment. If you look at these numbers, it is so exciting to be able to show you, and I believe you all can see them, that this year our freshman class has 1,524 students, the largest class in our history, and also with a significant, as you can see, bump in our SATs. That is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. So, well, I certainly thank Dr. McLeod and her staff. She would be the first to say, it takes everyone to recruit a student, just as it takes every single person to retain a student. So thank you for that hard work. It's very, very exciting as you see that. And as we move forward, I'll show you a few more data points I think you'll find interesting. So the admit rate has decreased nearly 13 percentage points since 2009, and I think you all know that's actually a good thing. Our freshman class is the largest, as I said, beating last year's class of 1460. And this year we had more than 22,000 applications for admission, which is a 100% increase since the year 2012. And finally, and I think this is really something we should dwell on, our freshman class is incredibly diverse. 39% of our students are from outside the state of New Jersey. And when you think of the statistic that 80% of all college students go to school within 100 miles of their home, that is a remarkable accomplishment. 26% are Pell eligible, and 26% are first generation, and 45% of that is students of color. So we really, truly reflect our community. We are a microcosm of the community and the world in which we live. I think that is an amazing accomplishment. I don't know very many colleges and universities that have grown the size of their class and at the same time the academic preparedness at the same time. To be able to do both really is not easy, and you've done it, so congratulations. If we look at our freshman and sophomore retention rate, that's not quite as positive. You will see we took a slight dip this year. We are still digging deep into that data to try to understand it. We know that out-of-state students we do not retain them, and that's true across the country at the same level as we do students that are more local. And so as the number of out-of-state students go up, is that responsible for the dip? We don't know yet, and we'll all be working hard, and I know all of you will too, to figure out where that is. It is within certain programs. We don't know yet, but we are looking very, very hard at those numbers. And once they're finalized, we will be happy to share that with you. But that is probably, I would think, as we go through this data, one of the more concerning numbers, just to make sure this isn't a trend, that it's a blip, and then we can look and see what has caused that. If we look at our graduate enrollment, and if you recall last year when I stood before you, I said this is an area we really need to focus on because graduate enrollment is not discounted at anywhere near the same rate as undergraduate, and so the revenue that's attached to it is very, very important to our financial health. And if you look at these numbers, first of all, the law school, the JD program, it had taken a decline over the years, as had all law schools. But as you see, they have moved back up significantly over last year, so that's truly something we can celebrate. The MSJ program also showed a slight increase. Nursing and SHIMS the same, and all others a bit of a dip. And if we look back to 2009, you'll see it's a fairly significant over that time period, so something we need to continue to focus on. So if this is just a quick snapshot of the colleges that have remained about the same in enrollment, those have gone up and those who have gone down. So some of this is national trends. For example, in education, there's heightened competition, but also fewer students entering and desiring to be teachers. So this is not unique to Seton Hall. But since this College of Education is very, very important to us, I think St. Elizabeth and Seton would want us to put our best efforts to make sure we move the needle on this, and so we will continue to do so. So the graduate enrollment, total number of graduate students enrolled, excluding law and medicine, is projected to decrease from 3,249, which was in 2009, to 3,023 this fall. Enrollment is online graduate programs is projected to increase by 25% year over year. Let's keep our fingers crossed. That's not a magic number. We have to hope and work hard to get there. And the number of newly enrolled graduate students is trending comparably year to date, as you can see by the numbers. So academics, what an exciting year it's been. And I apologize, I know the font's rather small, so I will read what these programs are in case you can't see them from your seats. But the School of Medicine, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later because many people have asked me, what was the difference in the structure of it, and I'll get to that a bit later. But as you all know, it's up and running and has been and will continue to be for many of us a bit of a challenge on multiple levels, both in terms of resources and time, but it's up, running, and I have to say that, I don't know about you, but the students I've met that are up there, they just love that facility. So I think it accomplished the goals that were set forth. Create the university-wide leadership program for undergraduates, and not that I want to embarrass him, but our new director, Dr. Brian Price, is with us today. I think that is really, it was one of the most exciting events I've been to in the last couple of weeks, but seeing the kickoff of that, and I want to say, and I've said this to a number of you, one of the goals of the program is to be the most effective leadership program in the United States and follow in the footsteps of our amazing program within the Stillman School. And as I met those students, it really touched my heart how excited they were. But also, Dr. Price had the goal of being the most effective leadership program in the United States. That resonated, I don't know about you, but that resonated so much more than saying we're going to be the best. What does the best really mean? Does it mean we're the most expensive? We have the most resources? When you say most effective, to me so kudos to everyone that had a part in selecting that terminology, because I think it really gets to who we are as a university. We're not trying to be the best, the prettiest, the richest, we'll never be that, but we are trying to be effective, and that means how do we provide the best environment to our students. So that program is off and running, and I have to say, to be able to do that, again, on very limited resources, is truly amazing. So I give a special word of thanks to everyone in each of the schools and colleges that's taken on that initiative to support it. So thank you. I know you're doing it with already full plates. So I hope the work is rewarding to you as it is to us who watch it from afar and say, how are you doing that? So thank you so much. We also, this fall, this is a number of new programs. So again, if you can't see them, the Doctor of Medicine, the minor in Irish Literature, minor in Sports Media, 4+2 in Psychology and Speech Language Pathology, master's degree in Physics, Global Studies Certificate, minor in Medieval and Renaissance Studies, and online executive master's degree in Diplomacy. It's a lot. And when people say universities move slowly compared to other types of institutions and corporations, I suppose there's some truth to it, but that's an awful lot of activity in a relatively short period. So a very profound thanks to the faculty who worked so hard to get those up and running. Inclusion initiatives. It's been a year of very, very hard work on multiple fronts, and many of you in this room have worked very, very hard to try to do this. And so there have been many, many communications. I won't go through all of them with you, but I'd like to just talk about a few things. First, the climate survey. It's out there. If you haven't completed it, I ask you to do it. Surveys are complicated. I know many people worked hard to try to capture everyone's intentions, everyone's wishes. Not easy to do. It's important to have full participation in that survey. So some time left, you haven't yet completed it. It doesn't take that long. I strongly urge you to do so. Also, we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at the first of our 4 university-wide dialogues on inclusion. That will be at September 13th at 10 a.m. in Bethany Hall. And an exceptional speaker on the topic of inclusion will be with us, Mr. Reginald Butler. So please make an effort to be there. And also, we look forward to our students who will lead university life classes on inclusion. They will shortly be going on retreat to prepare themselves for this most important work. I have said, and many of you heard me say, that we often talk about a place that welcomes people, and I think welcome is important, but to me, welcome conjures up also, you can be a guest that we welcome you and then you leave us. When we say you belong here, to me, that's a much more powerful statement. So in our community, everyone belongs, and with that comes, I believe, they need to feel respected, they need to feel appreciated, and they may need to feel very much a part of this community. I believe that's the kind of community we are, but we know sometimes people don't feel that. We have to work doubly hard this year to make sure every single person who's a member of our community, regardless of where they're from, what they believe, what they think, that they feel not just welcomed here, but they feel that they are a full-fledged belonging member of the Seton Hall community. And I know we can do that. I know that's who we are. So I thank you for all the hard work that's been done on this so far. Many of the faculty that are sitting here today have worked very, very hard on this. So thank you all again for doing that. And I look forward to seeing everyone on September 13th. Student services. The Gen 1 program, I love walking around campus and seeing the Gen 1 decals. I have one on my own office, as most of you know. I am a graduate of this university, and when people say, what brought you to Seton Hall, I said the bus. It was the only university I could get to by bus from where I lived. We didn't own a car, and that's why I was here. But I truly look back every day when I'm on this campus. I think of faculty primarily, not of the buildings, because they weren't very pretty back then, and many of you know there were cars parked everywhere. But many of the lessons I learned, and I'll just share one. I was a sociology major. Some of you maybe remember Dr. Sangiovanni, and I took a basic course. It was the first course, and it was we had to go to supermarkets, she said, in affluent neighborhoods and then in poor neighborhoods and see what food cost. And I have to tell you, as a young woman, it was shocking. I lived in a poor neighborhood, by the way, so I went to Short Hills to see a nice supermarket. And I was shocked to see the food there was cheaper than where it was in Orange, where I grew up. And those basic lessons in sociology, I will tell you that throughout my life, both professionally and also personally, it changed my perspective on the world in so many ways. So to this day, I give thanks to Cindy Sangiovanni and many, many other faculty, too many to mention. But those are the moments, those are the intersections that really make a difference. So while we want beautiful facilities and we need them, at the end of the day, it's you in those classrooms, and even us that work in cafeterias, wherever we work, we teach every day in different ways. So I just want to say thank you for that too. It makes a difference, and you're looking at a product of what you did many, many years ago. So I thank you personally. So the Gen 1 program, so as you know, these are the first in their families to attend college. So this year it increased from 23 students last year to 51. That doesn't mean that's the total number of people on our campus that are first gen, but it's the ones that are participating in this. And it's really wonderful to see how they have gelled as a group, and the retention is so strong, and we can keep doing this as we move forward. So really thank you to Dr. Gottlieb and everyone who's involved in that initiative. Our retention of transfer students this year, interestingly, who began at Seton Hall last fall, is 85%, which is the first time in recent history that we've topped 80%. So while the overall retention is down a bit, we're certainly doing something right with transfers. And that's something else we have to look at to say, what are we doing there that's working so well, and are there any lessons learned that are transferable to other populations? We already talked about the inclusion initiatives for that we had done last year, and we will do more. This is last year's number, but we will do even more next year, as you know. 25 students were Fulbright awardees since 2009, including 3 last year. It's remarkable. Students have also been selected for the Boren Award, Pickering Fellowship, and Udall Scholarship. Our employment rate for our graduates is 20% above the national average, and we were named one of the top 5 universities in the country for internships. And we know how important that is. And not to make this again about me, but I was in the first internship class Seton Hall ever had. There were 10 of us back in 1971, and my first job came about from that. So I can look back on that and say we've come a long way from 10 students to look where we are today. Amazing, amazing progress. So thank you all again for that. Athletics. Well, we had a record high 3.4 cumulative GPA for all student athletes last year. Baseball, men's and women's cross country, men's and women's golf, women's swimming and diving, all in the top 10% in academic progress. Men's swimming and diving won 2nd straight Big East championship. Men's basketball earned 3rd straight NCAA tournament bid. And you all know the Big East is probably, I think, is the toughest conference in the country for basketball. And as you know, Villanova the last 2 years won the national championship. So to be playing in those leagues, again, with our resources, and to be able to do what we do. But I'd also say academically, I was talking right before we started to Coach Bazell to congratulate him. The women's basketball team worked really hard this summer to get their GPA up, and they accomplished their goal. This is really what matters most, and we all know that. It's really success in the classroom. And I know Pat Lyons agrees with me on that, and is very proud of the academic work that his students are doing. And they also performed a record-breaking 3,213 hours of volunteer service. That is difficult. You know the life of an athlete here, not just in the classroom, but they're on the road a lot. So to be able to accomplish that kind of number, that's who we are at Seton Hall. And they're really great role models, I think, for all of our students. Quick, just pictures of facilities for you to take a quick look. People were busy over the summer. This is a new picture of the student-athlete refueling station, which you can go over and take a look at if you haven't seen it. Nice space, very well used. I've even seen students sitting in there studying. We will be embarking this year on renovations to the Owen Carroll Field, and I want to also just let everyone know the money has been raised for that through athletics, so that's not being just taken from any other pot. It's money they raised specifically for this project. Our facilities are beautiful, but they really are not standard compared to other universities, particularly in the Big East. So when students are recruited here, it's not easy. We have to charm them into wanting to be here more than being attracted by our stellar athletic facilities. And I think we do a good job of that. But the facilities really need an overhaul. So this is a quick glimpse of renderings of what that will look like. And so I think particularly I feel for people in the seminary, for example, that have to look out at a parking structure. Maybe they can turn their eyes a little bit more to the right. It'll be a little bit better view than they currently, unfortunately, have of a parking structure. And so this is just, again, renderings of what that would look like. As you know, the university spent quite a bit of money renovating the Interprofessional Health Sciences campus in Nutley, so that if you haven't been there, I strongly urge you to try to take a look. It's a beautiful facility. The students love it. Everyone I've met on campus that's been there, that's now studying there, just feels they're in a state-of-the-art A1 facility. So take a little ride to Nutley someday if you have an hour and check it out. Classrooms formerly occupied by nursing and SHIMS have been renovated with new audiovisual equipment and ADA-compatible furniture. We all know about Bethany Hall. And if you haven't been over, I still call it the Galleon Room. If you haven't been over there, it's really a dramatic improvement. We eat with our eyes, and as Al Frangillo said to me, food's not that different, but it looks prettier, and they think it's better. So. But we have made some, and also if you're in Jubilee Hall, since I'm in President's Hall, it's really quick to run over to the Starbucks and grab a soup or a sandwich or a salad. So that's also been a nice addition. So many improvements to the student dining and for all of us dining experience. So quick picture of the Interprofessional Health Sciences campus. That's the inside when you first go in the building. Behind those wooden doors is a very nice little amphitheater that Hoffman LaRoche left intact for us, which was nice. We didn't have to do anything to it. Bethany Hall you're all familiar with. And here the dining hall that was actually completed last year, but quite a bit was done. So in terms of facilities, really a big shout out to John and to all the folks in the facilities area under Dennis's leadership. Quite a bit was accomplished this year. So again, on a shoestring. So thank you all for that. Sustainability, and I'm touching on a few things. If you recall, just pause a second. When we first announced we were doing this, I asked if there were any areas anyone wanted me to include. So some of the things I'm including today are really in response to questions that have been asked of me. So I tried to incorporate it into this presentation. So a number of people asked me about sustainability and wanted to know specifically what we were doing. And there's quite a bit. And so I just summarized up here on the slide, campus recycling and ecology club sustainability efforts. Last year, because a number of students asked me, I put together a group of people to say, look at the last plan that was done, which was extremely comprehensive, and said, what have we actually done? Before we reinvent the wheel and start coming up with a new list, many things hadn't changed. What are the things we had said we wanted to do that we weren't doing? I will tell you some, I think, positive things just in terms of total recycling. Just in the last, I would say just from 2015 to today, we've almost doubled the amount of tons of recycling we've done on an annual basis, now closely approximating over 100 tons in 1 year. So that's a lot of recycling, and a long way from, I would say, in 2015 it was under 60 tons. So we've made some real progress in that area. The Ecology Club is planting vegetables, fruits, and flowers in our campus garden. As you know, they've also planted a clover pollinator garden. I don't know exactly what that is, but they have, and it's an effort to, science wasn't my strong suit, an effort to increase biodiversity on campus. The Department of Facilities and Engineering and Business Affairs supports the Ecology Club by sponsoring events and activities, including the EcoFest, nature hikes, and trips to learn about sustainability. With the support of Facilities and Business Affairs, the university has also partnered with the New Jersey Highlands Coalition and Food and Water Watch, and both organizations deal with water conservation. As you can see, if you blue goes green, initiative gave out 525 reusable cups last year and 1,588 to the incoming freshmen. Dunkin' Donuts now offers a discount on ordering coffee if you use a reusable mug, and many, many other things. Now, I will say this isn't enough, and we all know that we need to do more, and I could go on, there's quite a list, but if you are interested, there are many people working on this on campus, and I can assure you we are committed to doing the very, very best. We take seriously, particularly as a Catholic institution, our care of the planet, and what that should mean to all of us. So I don't want, just because we may not talk about it as much as we should, I want to assure you that much is going on, but much more needs to be done. Advancement. I'm going to take another little quick pause on this. Since I've been here, many of the things that the board has asked me to look at are just operational areas and where we need to, bolster our energies. And I'm going to share with you this little statistic. As you know, the goal for this university for many years is to break into the top 10 Catholic universities. And I can't share a lot of that with you today because it's embargoed till Monday, but there'll be an announcement going out. It's really very, very good news, so you can get excited. It's really good news. But it really is. But let me put something in a framework for you. The number one university for years, Catholic university, is Notre Dame. I would ask you to guess what their endowment is, but it's $9.6 billion. The number 10th Catholic university in America, their endowment is $1.6 billion. Seton Hall's endowment is about $260 million. So when I tell the board, look at what they're doing, and look what we do on that little bit of money. So when the board gets concerned about something like a discount rate, I remind them that the discount rates at these other schools are very small, not because they're not giving away more money, but it's all endowed scholarships through their endowments, so they don't have these big fat discount rates. Ours is a national average, by the way. It's not high, and how we stretch it and what we do with it is nothing short of a miracle. But if you look at these other universities, they're not taking that money out of operations. We are. And that's a huge difference. So I say that to you only when you see the report on Monday and see where we sit, given our resources, pat yourself on the back and say, we're really terrific. Because it's not easy to do what we do on so little, and many of you, rightly so, would say we don't make enough money here. True. I mean, go down a list of things. We don't have enough money for technology. We don't. We don't have enough money for this. We don't. And we have to do better. And if there's one thing that I've challenged the board is they've got to raise more money. And it's why last year, and it's a small thing, but working with Matt, and I remember we're both interims, I said, do you think we can hit 10% on our giving rate? It was, as you know, low 8%. Can we hit 10% and try to get to the national average? He said, we'll do it. And he did, and they did, and we did. And that is truly, one of a financial consultant in the fundraising said, probably a dozen schools out of 4,000 have ever done that in 1 year. You did it. And many of you in this room contributed to that initiative. This year we're going to move it again, and we have to. Now that hasn't resulted in huge big dollars, but you have to get people in a pipeline before they can make bigger gifts. And we're doing that, and we have an awful lot of work to do. And I would just remind everyone, the chief fundraiser in a university is not the vice president for advancement. It's the president. And we have got to move, this is an area we have got to focus on. We haven't done a capital campaign since 2010. Most schools finish one and they're already started the next one. There's no breath in between. You just keep moving. So I say this not as a criticism because none of you in this room have anything to do with it, but as a challenge to our board and to all of us in leadership to say we just have to do better in the fundraising arena. A $260 million endowment does not match the aspirations and the performance of this institution. It just doesn't. And I am saying this to the board. When they say you have to cut another X out of this budget, my response has been, no, we don't. We have to raise more money. Which isn't to say there's some money we couldn't tweak here and there, but in general, things here are underfunded. I will just use my own office as an example. If you go to most universities our size, there's 5 to 6 people working in there. At Seton Hall, there's myself, Elisa Metz, who does a terrific job, and a receptionist, and that's it. And you could all say that in your own areas, and the only way we can do this, we can't do it out of operations, we've just got to raise more money. So with that said, you will look and see the increase of donors from 4,100 in 1 year to 5,232 is quite a jump, and it's important. And while it doesn't show in huge dollars right now, people give year in, year out, and you slowly move them up the pipeline. If they're not in the pipeline, it's like sales. You're never going to make a sale. So it's a start, and it's a very auspicious start, but we have a long, long way to go. If you look at our alumni volunteers, that's also been a nice, we do have, and this has been a truly successful program over the last few years. Advancement has been growing their alumni volunteers. These are really important people to the university on many levels, from mentoring to just a range of things they do. You'll see that number in 1 year grew by 67. And again, this is with interim leadership. That's not easy, with a lot of open vacancies in that area. And then the True Blue loyalty program, also a nice bump up in 1 year. So when I say all this, I say this with great respect for the people working in advancement, and it's not as if they've not been doing a good job, it's just we've not really been focusing with all the energy we need to focus, and that has to come from the top. And so I leave that as probably my most important piece of information for the next president. You've got to raise more money. So the Get to 10 produced a 21% increase in the number of gifts from undergraduates. The first Seton Hall Giving Day yielded the highest 24-hour totals in terms of actual dollars, and 100-plus donors contributed a total of $7 million to dedicate Bethany Hall in honor of Monsignor Sheeran. The money for that building was not initially raised through fundraising. It was done through some money from the state as well as through operations, frankly, and borrowing. So to be able to offset some of that through the fundraising we did last year really helped quite a bit ease some of the cash flow issues at the university. And for the first time in history, our one gala sold out, and we moved it to campus. We reduced the cost so that it was more affordable and accessible to all of our alums. It was heartbreaking to me last year to go and see people saying, well, I came, but I couldn't afford to bring my spouse. And that's not who we are. And while it's a fundraiser, it's also there to honor our alumni. And if they can't afford it, then we're doing something wrong and we have to fix it. So we did, and we sold out. So hopefully we'll have another great event like that this coming spring. PR and marketing. The Great Minds campaign started some time ago, and so I think it was off to a little bit of a slow start, but it's been kicked out and it's out there. You'll see what Great Minds can do on everything, and I gather this was done with input on the campus. That was done before I arrived, so I'm not totally familiar with how all of it came about, but it's out there, and it's apparently generated some nice positive, 28,359 positive and neutral media placements for 2017-18, which is a 52% increase. And that's a very, very positive thing. Having more awareness of who we are and what we're doing is critically important. We increased our top-tier media placements by 44% and 17.1 million website views by over 2.1 million unique visitors to Seton Hall last year's website. So again, this is progress, and again, kudos to the folks who made that happen. Our revenue, if you look at this, it's kind of a hard chart to see, but if you look at it, once again, the big red, maroonish color is that's our revenue from tuition and fees, because as you know, it's over 70% of our revenue comes from tuition and fees. I wish I could say if we had a big endowment, it was a lot less than that. You'll see other revenue comes from auxiliary types of services that we offer, as well as athletics does bring in 2% of our revenue, and the endowment about 3%, and then other contributions 1.5%. We need that pie to be shifted so that the red gets smaller and everything else gets bigger. In simple terms. Expenses by division, 50% of our expenses are spent totally on academics, you'll see 8% on athletics, facilities, about 12%, IT 9%, et cetera. So it's basically, the percentages would not be very different from most universities, although some would say that athletics, IT would be larger in some institutions than it is here, but it's fairly comparable, the percentages, to most universities if you were to benchmark. Net revenue, it has gone down, if you see, and that is, again, a challenge if you look at the trends over the years. This is preliminary for 2018. As you know, until add drop's finished and we can really take a deeper dive, we don't really know for sure, but we're fairly certain it will take a bit of a dive. Not unexpected, we knew that was coming. It's been happening for a few years. As I mentioned, the U.S. News World Rankings will come out on Monday. There will be a release that shares that with you. There are some really very, very positive things to see in there, and I wish I could talk about them because they're exciting, but I think it'll be fun reading for you on Monday. And so you will be very proud to see where we've moved and how we've done it, and take a deep look at the metrics because you will see, I think, some interesting data in there. Things like moving up the needle, by the way, from 8 to 10% in alumni giving, that will show up as a big win next year because the data are based on last year's performance, not the year where you're sort of always a year behind. So we should see a little bit of bump there. Just as one little thing, I will see and the one area we've never moved in the 8 years I've looked at it, but we did move a little bit this year, was our reputation. And well, to me, that is the true beauty contest, how popular you are, not necessarily how effective you are. Nonetheless, it's nice to see there was a bump there because there has not been in a very, very long, I don't know if ever, frankly. So in the 20 years I've been looking at it. So really some positive things for you to see. I was asked, by the way, one of the things, of many things I was asked about was, where are we at with the presidential search? And so I asked, since I'm not involved in it, I asked Mr. Murray if he would prepare something. So I'm just going to read to you what he asked me to be read to you about where we are with the search for the new president. He writes, "Dear members of the university community, I write to provide you a brief update regarding our search process for Seton Hall's 21st president. As you know from my communication of July 12th, the search was expanded last spring to include qualified practicing Roman Catholic laypersons. Although that search identified some talented candidates, collectively the regents did not deem any of them to be the one to lead the university. Recently, the Board of Trustees met to revise the university bylaws to allow the university to continue to search for both qualified Catholic priests and laypersons, and to modify the composition of the search committee. Currently, the regents are working to select a new executive search firm. A new search committee will be formed in the coming weeks. In the meantime, he very generously just thanks me for my service and notes that I have agreed to stay through this academic year. He writes, I also wish to thank the entire Seton Hall community for your patience and understanding as we continue our search. Best wishes for a successful year. Patrick M. Murray, Chair, Board of Regents." So I am assuming soon you will be hearing more information from him as this moves forward. So, what's up for the next decade? We are a Catholic university, and so deepening our Catholic spirituality and our culture should permeate every goal that we do at this university, whether it's in the sciences, talking about the Catholic intellectual tradition and how the Catholic Church contributed to science, to every area of what we do on this campus. It should permeate it so students who graduate from here have a full and deep appreciation of who we are as a Catholic university. Enrollment, the goal for a very long time now is to increase selectivity while maintaining a diverse student body and to grow graduate enrollment. I will just again state that increasing selectivity and maintaining a diverse student body while growing the enrollment is truly a challenging formula, and that we've come this far and done this well is a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment. It continues to be difficult because our model of financial aid is directed much toward merit than it is need. And when you look at 26% of our students are Pell recipients, one of the things I will say will be increasingly challenging. New Jersey is one of the most generous states to students going to private institutions in the country. And while we fight hard to keep those tag grants in place, there's increasing pressure every year from the public universities in our state to get that money for themselves because it's public money. If we were to lose that, that would be devastating to Seton Hall when so many of our students receive that funding. And so I just put that out there to remind you as citizens to keep advocating for the tag grants. There's no way that I can fully express to you how critically important they are to us. So when our money is given more toward merit than it is toward need, it's tough, and it's not. We were founded, as most Catholic institutions, for access, and so to provide that kind of access and grow the quality, again, very, very difficult balancing act. So I ask you, what can you do? You can continue to lobby and advocate for the total and complete maintenance of the TAG grants, and even hopefully increases. Difficult in an environment where, as you know, in New York, public universities are now free, and we're seeing that now crop other places. It will make competition stiffer and stiffer for schools like ourselves, and so if that more and more reason why we have to keep that money in place. So that's just my little political statement of the day. Please lobby to keep it in place. Matt, in his other hat, is our government relations. He is much more of an expert on this than I, but I can assure you that when the private college presidents, when we get together, the focus is almost exclusively on keeping TAG in place. Academics achieve eminence in new and established academic units. In one of my recent missives to the board, I wrote, if the best we can do is mediocre, we shouldn't be doing it. And I sincerely believe that. We have to, everything we do here, again, with limited resources, not easy. It has to be of the highest possible quality. And when strategic plans are done, I believe that it has to come from academics first and foremost. What are we doing to promote the well-being of our students and their academic success? And so if you look, and I know I was leading through one of Dr. Esteban's messages to you, he talked about Elon University. It's used nationally as a model of university that took itself seriously and said, we're going to focus on what are academic best practices, and that's what we're going to put our money into, whether that's international travel for students, internships, independent research with faculty. That's what they did. And they took the 8 high-impact practices, that's what they invested in, and that's why they are where they are today. So when I leave you in June, I will continue to drum home to the board, academic excellence has got to be the driving force of whatever we do here. And if it isn't, well, then I don't think the future is as rosy as if we can keep that laser-like focus on quality. And that's not just in academics. Everything we do has to be of the highest quality, whether it's in the food we provide or the residence halls, the best we can do with our limited resources. And again, laser-like focus on quality, and again, quote Dr. Price, being effective. So, infrastructure. We do need to invest in some of our buildings. When I was here, one of my degrees is in rehabilitation counseling. I'm still, all these years later, a licensed rehabilitation counselor. So I walk around and look at buildings that aren't barrier-free, and I cringe. It is unconscionable to me that we have spaces that people in wheelchairs are still not accessible in 2018. It needs to be addressed. We're trying. Again, not a criticism blamed at anyone, but just, one of our board members said to me when he was in college, he had to spend a day in a wheelchair to see what it was like to function on his campus. He said, I lasted an hour. And I said, this is it, I can't do it. And I lobbied to try to get this done. So, when I left here, by the way, when I went to Wisconsin, I lobbied for fire safety. After our fire, I went to Madison and I brought Dana Christmas, many of you remember, with me, one of the victims of that fire. And she stood before the state of Wisconsin and said, don't ever have anyone have to say that a child died because you didn't pass legislation you could have approved. It was unanimous. They did it in 5 minutes. And so I say the same thing about making our structures here accessible to students. They need to be safe and they need to be accessible. And then we can talk about pretty. But these are things that are critically important. So I will keep lecturing this to the board as often as I can, because I think it's a disgrace not to have someone with a disability be able to enter any building on this campus. I hope you agree with me. So, advancement, we already talked about that. We need to keep focusing on it, and if we don't, we will not be able to continue the things we're already doing. Retention goals, we already saw that we took a little bit of a dip this year to 83, so getting up to 90 by 2025, not easy. And again, given our population, remember, we overperform. If you look at U.S. News, even historically, given the students we serve, we actually outperform what's expected of us, given the financial and academic preparedness level of some of our students. So, to me, I say this is a very ambitious goal. I hope we can get there, but be mindful of the fact you're already doing a very fine job, and this is not going to be an easy one. Advancement goals, again, they're ambitious to get to by 2022. I think the alumni giving rate, we can do that. I'm more confident of that. The donors we can get there. And the commitments, well, that will be tough. We have to get there. So, and hopefully we will do that. So challenges, these don't change much, so some of you may recognize they're fairly similar to what I presented last year. The competition for students is extraordinary. We live in a part of the country where the demographics are declining, and why we've been successful recruiting and why we've been really moving into markets where there is some growth in the population. So we were one of the only schools last year in the state that saw a real bump in enrollment. And this year, if you look at our freshman class, it's over 4% larger than it was last year. Most schools are happy if they just can stay steady and stay the same. We need to continue to enhance our visibility. I believe strongly that we're not good at telling our story in a compelling enough way because we don't always know what really differentiates us. Seton Hall is a very special place, and there are differentiators. And one of the things you will see is we have first of all, the diversity. We're the most diverse Catholic university in the United States. We should be talking about that a lot more loud and clear. Not just because it's the right thing to do and because we're a Catholic university, but because employers are begging for a diverse market of employees. So to be able to say we are doing what we're doing and educating the students we're doing, we're in a sweet spot with that. We need to be articulating that much more frequently and to very bigger and wider audiences. I would also say that similarly, if you look at not just the diversity of our students, but also our graduation rates for Black students, we believe, and I just want to, we'll take a deeper look at this, it would appear that second only to Howard University is our graduation rates. That's impressive. That is really a differentiator. To be able to talk about these things loud and clear it makes us unique, and it makes us stand out, and it will make people look at what we're doing in new ways. So I challenge all of us to think about ways to tell our story in a much more compelling way. We don't have to exaggerate. The story's there. We just don't tell it as often and as loudly as we could. Prospect of free public education, I already mentioned that. I think it's an enormous threat as it takes wind and we've already seen in New Jersey, Governor Murphy has already really extended that to community colleges. I do worry about what effect that could have on us, but it's why we have to continue to do the good work we're doing. And also faculty and staff recruitment and retention, having the kinds of people we need here to do the work we need to do. It's been a challenge, and it will continue to be. Having a more diverse workforce, particularly really throughout the university. We don't do a terrible job if you compare to other universities, but we have to do better. We don't look like our students. We don't. And that's a problem, and we have to figure out better ways to do it. Not easy, I know everybody's trying, but we cannot forget about it, and it has to stay on that list of things we need to do. Opportunities. I really believe it's focusing, as I've said, on student success. You also have an opportunity at Seton Hall in a change in leadership. I will be gone. You'll be able to hire a new president that hopefully, will be able to have his or her own take on this, but will be able to be an amazing fundraiser because that is so, so important. New programs, we have a number of new ones. Some of the work we're doing in data analytics with corporations, for example. So I'm not just talking about the degree granting. Some of the other things we can do offer great promise. And also national visibility. We are much more visible nationally than we were 10 years ago, and that makes a big, big difference. I've also been asked if I talk briefly about the goals for what are my goals this year, and these come from the Board of Regents, so I will go through them. I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about the Medical School of Medicine simply because, if you recall, and I shared this when I arrived last year, we were none of the documents were finalized on the School of Medicine, and there was some concern on the board, and certainly I shared it, around the financial model of the School of Medicine. And just to give you a few examples so you can understand that, it was based on about a 9.5% discount rate. Most new medical schools range in the mid-60s, and established ones in the mid-40s. You just saw NYU is now tuition-free for their students. So the pressure to keep medical schools, the price down, is enormous. So I knew right off the bat, looking at it, this isn't going to work financially. We're going to go bankrupt. This year alone, we would have lost over $7 million. And that's not money we've saved. It's money that would have pushed us into the red, which we don't have. So it's not as if I can say, okay, great, now we have $7 million to spend. It's just we're not $7 million cash in the hole as a result of it. So we had to restructure it. So essentially, to remind you, the way it is, also the university wanted a medical school. The stated reasons were to have a pipeline for undergraduates to go to medical school, to have clinical placements for nursing and SHIMS, which are increasingly difficult to get all over the country, and also to really enhance our reputation in the STEM area. However, none of that was in the original documents, so there were no guarantees of a pipeline for students. There were no guarantees for clinical placements, and so that had to be reworked. So over the last year, I would say the majority of my time, and I would say for many of the people in the cabinet, was spent really reworking the entire structure of the School of Medicine so it would not bankrupt us. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you over time, when we looked at the financial projections, it very likely could have put us into tremendous financial distress. So in the new arrangement, as of July 1, for the most part, Hackensack Meridian is paying all expenses for the School of Medicine. They guaranteed us 25% of the seats in every class for our students if they're qualified, as long as they meet entrance criteria. And they've guaranteed that we all clinical placements for nursing and SHIMS, and that they cannot approach other universities until our need is met. So those are the essential differences. So the medical school currently is under our accreditation, but the Hackensack Meridian has, and part of the agreement is that they hire consultants to help move toward the accreditation of just the School of Medicine. This has nothing to do with nursing or SHIMS, they remain ours, but that school becomes theirs over time, and that we would stick in there with them until we were able to do that. That the estimate, we hope, can be done within 3 years. It might take a little bit longer, so we're working with accrediting bodies at Middle States as well as the LCME. And so for all perpetuity, we will continue to have interprofessional learning, so that will not change the student experience for nursing or SHIMS. And so that's, in essence, what was different about it. And I will tell you, at times, the board was, I think, at the point of saying, just pull out of this altogether and just get away, that we can't, this is too much. And we knew that many of us said that isn't the way to go. The way to go is to figure out how to give Hackensack what they want, which is control of it, and to give us what we want, which is a pipeline for our students, a state-of-the-art facilities for our current and future students in nursing and SHIMS, and to give them the opportunity to learn in an interprofessional environment. So the goals for which this school was first planned, we have met and I think actually exceeded every goal that was first stated. We've already seen a bump in the pre-med students that are enrolling here with much higher academic profile. So that's in essence the difference, and I'm happy. I don't want to spend any more time right now on it. I'm looking at the watch because I want to get to your questions, but I just wanted to give you a little summary of what the difference is of what the original arrangement is. We do lease the space. That was the original arrangement. It's a 25-year lease. That has not significantly changed, although we were able to negotiate our lease fee is less than it was in the original documents. So we're paying less, if you will, rent. So, I mean, very, very positive. And so, again, thanks to many, many people sitting up here with me, and many of you even out there in the audience. This was not an easy process, and there were a few times on a weekend where we were sitting here trying to figure out how to do this, and I said, when I really didn't think we were going to make it, so get through this. But we did. And it's a proud moment, and I think, again, we can all be proud that we are now part of a School of Medicine without having the financial liability. I call it the bonus without the onus. The bonus of having it without the onus of paying for all of it. So that's where that stands. So this year, there are going to be growing pains. Some people think, it's all over now, we can move on to other things. The amount of time and energy still being spent, everything from how much it costs to park there to how far away that parking is. There are enormous, I'm laughing, I'm looking at our Dean Foley laughing at me out there. But it's a challenging time. It's not going to go away quickly, anything new. I ask us all to try to focus on the student experience right now, because they are over the moon with the facilities, and you all know that. And that's why we did it, and that's really, I know there's inconveniences. I'm not trying to in any way minimize how painful it might be for people that have to make those adjustments, but this new arrangement has not changed any of that. The same pain we would be going through, whether we had altered this or not. So right now we're finalizing all the legal documents. It's very, very complicated, but we're trying to get this finished by our October Board of Governors meeting with the School of Medicine. And really, to, again, take another deep dive into the financial plan. It's very complicated. So that's goal number one for me until I leave in June. That's really what we're focusing on and leading those efforts. Executive Cabinet, as you know, there are 3 of us that are in interim roles. I cannot tell you how proud I am of the entire Cabinet, working with 3 interim people that our hands are tied in many ways about everything from hiring to all sorts of things, because we're not here for the long haul, and yet having people that have been working as if their lives depended on it has been an inspiration to me, and I really have the utmost respect for everyone sitting up here with me. We are a team, and we wouldn't be where we are today without each and every one of them, so I'm deeply, deeply grateful. We have set our own goals, what we're trying to work on, and I can't tell you it's always easy. As with any team of people, we have different viewpoints on how to get things done, but I will assure you that our focus, and I'll end in a few minutes with what our guiding principles are as a cabinet, and please help us hold ourselves accountable to them. So we are also, communication strategies are self-evident. We have to continue to promote a sense of mobility and motion as we go forward this year, despite the interims, and these are the different messaging points. We've worked hard on how to keep in touch with these constituent groups, whether it's donors or alums, to assure people that we are moving forward despite interim people in so many positions. Analysis of current operations, I've mentioned that. The board has really asked me to try to look at any areas where we could possibly either improve performance or decrease costs. I've been much more focused on saying we've got to focus on how to increase revenue more than trying to decrease costs, because I do believe sincerely that we're underfunded. For the Board of Regents, it's important for a board to be educated on topics. This retreat that they're having this month is their normal September retreat. They will be focusing on themselves and how they can be a better board. So boards typically love to assess how all of us are doing. We're asking them to assess themselves right now, how they think they're doing, because there's no great university without a great board, and great boards do not tolerate mediocre universities. So we have to all be on the top of our game, and I'm very pleased to see that they're committed to looking at themselves this year. Also, the budget, maintaining a balanced budget. This is a very tough year. We knew that it would be a tough year. The costs associated with the medical school have been very, very challenging for us, and we are trying. The board really wants us to stay within our operating expenses and revenue. But again, the medical school, despite, even though we've been able to eliminate a huge, huge financial burden, it still is costing us money. We're in a new facility. There's lease payments. It's not cheap. Relationship building, well, it's important to keep also the external community aware that we're here, and so as an interim, it's important for me to represent us, whether it's the State Association of Private Colleges or anywhere else I'm asked to speak to represent us, and I am doing that to assure people that we are moving forward. Continue to, as I said, monitor the impact of what it means having a transitional leader. You know, for example, those of you who are faculty in the room, to conduct a search for the new provost, we need the president first, because no provost is going to come here until they know who their boss is. So we've got, you know, that has tied our hands in many ways on some of the things we'd like to do. So how do we monitor the impact and try to really minimize that on all groups is not always easy. Advancement we've talked about, but the goal this year that the board has agreed for us to push to the 11% alumni giving rate. It's at 10.2. It's hard to do it 2 years in a row. I think we can do it. We have a plan to do it, and by God, I'll be haunting people if we don't do it. So we're going to get there. I wanted to end just, and then I'm going to take some questions. I have till about 10:30, so I will, any of you have to go, you can go, but if you want to ask questions, you can ask them of any of us, and I'll let Matt coordinate that in a second. But I just wanted to put up there what our own principles are. Our cabinet worked last summer, not this summer, summer of 17, to work on what our guiding principles are. So I leave you looking at that. I would say that, you know, looking at every decision from the well-being and success of students is our priority in our discussions and in our decision-making. We're not flawless in this, but we hold ourselves accountable to this. It's on the bottom of every agenda and everything that we write. We put these on here to remind ourselves that this is what we as a team agreed to do. So I thought that would be important for you to see. And then I'm going to finally end just quickly with I thought I would share with you, it's interesting, I was the first lay president at a Catholic hospital, and then the first lay president at the college where I served for 12 years. And one of the things people used to joke with me is, can you spontaneously say a prayer because you're Catholic? And because the assumption was, if you're a Catholic, you just recite prayers you know from heart. And so I quickly learned how to just get up at any time if I was asked to say a prayer and say it. So I'm going to just share with you a prayer that I actually say before I go into every meeting, to myself. I don't make them say it with me, but this is what I say, and I thought you might. I hope this says something to you. But I say, as we begin this meeting today, I ask that we not think alike, but that we offer our opinions with kindness and listen attentively to each other. May we always assume positive intention, even when we feel slighted and misunderstood. At the conclusion, may we leave, dear God, strengthened by each other's commitment to our students, to each other, and may we leave united in justice and charity so that we might do your work on this campus and in this world. I leave that with you. I probably say it 10 times a day because I'm in that many meetings. But I ask you to think about that we are a community that we don't have to think alike, we shouldn't think alike. But we should come away united in purpose, that we are striving to give our students an environment where they will make this world a better place. And that is, in the end, to me, it's that simple. That's our mission. And if we do it every day and model it and be civil and kind and believe, even when we disagree with someone, that they're coming from a good place, not a bad place. And I really believe that. I believe every single person, even when I don't agree with them, I trust that they want, as much as I do, the very best for our students. So I'm going to end with that, turn it over to Matt, but we'll stay till 10:30. But if you have to go, please do ask any question you like. I think I've addressed everything I was asked to cover, but if not, you have a little time now. So thank you. God bless you, and let's make this the best year.